Hey guys, today I'll be explaining the Analects of Confucius 3.22, and without further ado, let's get started. 3.22, the master said, Guan Zhong was a man of small capacity. Someone said, does this mean that Guan Zhong was frugal? The master said, Mr. Guan had 3 residences, yet every officer on his staff had no separate duty other than the one he was assigned. How could this be considered frugal? In that case, did he understand the rites? Rulers of states put up gate screens in front of their palaces. Mr. Guan also put up a gate screen. Rulers of states, when entertaining another ruler, had an earthen stand to be used for wine cups after the guests had drained their cups. Mr. Guan also had such a stand. If Mr. Guan understood the rites, who does not understand the rites? Alright, so Guan Zhong was a counselor or minister or advisor who helped this the most powerful, you could say, regional ruler of the spring and autumn period rise to power. So he was the advisor to that person, and he was credited for being the one to catapult him up to that position. He was a very well-known person, but Confucius says that he had a small capacity, and no, he wasn't criticizing his talents, because yes, he actually did bring his state to a very wealthy kind of state of being, and he was very effective as a minister, and he wasn't incompetent at all. And that's not what Confucius means. So what he means is that he had a small capacity. So qi, which is translated into capacity here, is something like a vessel in the context of this passage. And so a small vessel can only hold a little bit of things, while a bigger vessel has a kind of a bigger purpose than the smaller one does. So Confucius is just criticizing him for lacking the restraint and the moral balance that a great person needed to have. And so someone says, does that mean that he was frugal? Does that mean that he didn't waste a lot of money? And Confucius replies, he had 3 residences. Now, this part is kind of debated on what translation is correct, but you could just say that he had excess. That could be 3 residences or maybe even 3 marriages, but at the end of the day, it just means that he had more than he needed, basically. And every officer on his staff had no separate duty other than the one he was assigned. So he had so many people serving under him that no one had to do more than one job. So that means he had a lot of people. And so he says, how could this be considered frugal? So the fact that he had excess just means that he wasn't really good at conserving money. And then the person says, in that case, did he understand the rites? And Confucius responds with the fact that Guan Zhong had gate screens and an earthen stand or an inverted cup stand, which are things that are reserved for only rulers. So only rulers could have them, but he was only a minister, not a ruler. So he was kind of out of balance, and he was doing what he was not in the position to do. He wasn't permitted to do such things, but he did them anyway, and this shows how he just doesn't understand the rites. So we can gain from this that Guan Zhong really cared more about his own personal glorification and commanding his state through raw power instead of trying to restore the king's or the Zhou dynasty's emperor's moral authority, and he's not really trying to build a better state. And instead, he's caring more about himself. And so he really liked more like power and money and strength than caring about the rights. But the rights are basically what holds society together. So by undermining the rights, he's also undermining the political and moral order of the state. And that is what ultimately led to the Zhou dynasty's collapse, the fact that nobody really cared about the rights anymore. But yes, Guan Zhong was successful and effective because he made his state rich and powerful, and even made this kind of temporary state of peace. And Confucius does acknowledge this, but true greatness, which is not small capacity and is instead big capacity, true greatness is not just success, but also doing the right things, using the right ways. And that is not really what Guan Zhong did. So he just needed to be able to form a harmonious and benevolent society, and then he could have been a very, a sage king, like many translations like to put as kind of the really, really good kind of ruler who governs by virtue and good examples and benevolence. But instead, Guan Zhong instead just rules by force, which unfortunately falls short of the standard. And yeah, that will be all today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me, and I will be more than happy to answer you. And have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!